Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO at AAIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, bringing you practical, timely, and accurate insights so that you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, June 1st, episode 233. Today, like a balloon filling up with air to the point it explodes, your workforce just might be filling up with stress. So how can employers prevent employees from blowing up? That's a good question. To help with answers, we welcome Dr. Cathy Daus, an expert in stress management and emotional intelligence. Police organizations, hospitals, and AIM members alike look to her for guidance when it comes to improving wellness and enjoying the positive results that follow. Submit your questions and weigh in on the poll now or anytime throughout the show. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to This Week at Work. Happy to have you with us, Bert. Good morning. And how was your holiday, Bert?
Phil, my holiday was spent doing a long honey-do list. So hopefully, yeah, I don't have another weekend like that because I've got the scrapes and bruises to prove it. You're looking a little well-rested and maybe even a little bit tan.
I enjoyed a little fun in the sun, and I did my honey-do list as well. And my body hurt after that. I used to laugh when I heard people say, "Oh, I got some good exercise. I did yard work," and I never really understood that until now. Anytime I do yard work, I just hurt for days after. I think it's maybe it's causing me a little bit extra stress. We're going to talk about that a little bit with our guest, Dr. Cathy Daus. Welcome to the program, Cathy. How are you today?
Oh, fine, thank you. Apart from some little technical difficulties, but we got them all worked out, and I was hopeful that my dog wouldn't be running around wanting to play at the exact moment that you all would be chatting with me, but he's lying down nicely at my feet, so all is well.
Well, that's okay. If you bring if your puppy comes onto the program, we'll probably get more views than we do just by having Bert and I on the program. Bert has run a zoo in the past at the Garland household. We've had parakeets and dogs and white albino squirrels in his yard. We've had lots of different animal creatures on the program. So if that happens, no problem. But
might have been the first talk show ever where an animal was actually eaten by another animal on air.
On air, that's right.
On air.
All right, so let's keep it in between the lines so we don't get anyone upset and talk about animal cruelty or anything like that. Let's get the program started. We got a poll to introduce today. It's on, my first question is, on average, how often do you feel overwhelmed and or experience burnout at work? And there's multiple answers for you to choose from. That's a great question, Nick. I think people are going to say all the time. And then question number 2, we would do a word cloud. My favorite part of the question poll is, what stresses you at work? One word, what stresses you at work? And I have a prediction. I'll see if that comes in as the number 1 response. All right, Bert, are you ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
We've got a lot to cover.
All right, let's get it rolling. Lawyer, you are on the clock.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So 2 days ago, one of my favorite people that we've talked about on the program, the NLRB's General Counsel, Jennifer Abruzzo, issued a memorandum declaring her opinion that the, quote, proffer, maintenance, and enforcement of non-compete agreements in employment contracts and severance agreements violates the National Labor Relations Act, except in legal limited circumstances. So some of the quick hits from this: the General Counsel, she issued a memorandum explaining that the use of non-compete provisions in employment is an unfair labor practice, except in limited circumstances. She explained that avoiding competition from a former employee would not qualify as a legitimate business interest. The GC's memorandum also noted that businesses may have legitimate interest in protecting proprietary or trade secret information through very narrowly tailored workplace agreements. And seemingly the NLRB's general counsel's memorandum does not apply to non-compete agreements offered to supervisory or managerial employees because they're excluded from the definition of employees who are covered by the National Labor Relations Act. So this is a sea change from the NLRB's past efforts. They've never waded into the area of non-compete agreements, but here you have the NLRB's general counsel, who's been particularly aggressive against employers, now saying that the NLRB is likely going to be wading into the area of non-compete agreements.
Now,
So
do we expect that to stay out of the management ranks, and because the NLRB doesn't really cover that portion of employment? Is that what I heard you say?
yeah, that is, I'm glad you're listening, Phil. That's what we do expect. And
listening and interpreting.
Yeah, this is a big deal, though. And, you know, while it is a big deal, it probably doesn't stray too far from the advice or the suggestions or recommendations we've been making on the program over time, which is that non-competes really should be narrowly tailored to those employees who really can impact or hurt the organization just simply by the fact that they leave and go to a competitor. In other words, you know, your executives, your profit and loss employees, the sales employees, those folks are the ones who really should have the non-compete. We've talked in the past about restrictive covenant agreements that come in 3 flavors of a confidentiality agreement, then a non-solicitation, and then a non-compete. And so I would definitely encourage employers in light of this to just kind of re-examine their agreements. Also, I will remind people that the Federal Trade Commission is also taking comments on restricting the use of non-compete agreements overall. But they have announced recently that that ban of non-compete agreements won't take place until April of 2024. So that is delayed. It looks like in the meantime, the NLRB is sort of picking up the slack there.
Okay, very good.
All right. Next one, I'm just going to mention really quickly that the NLRB's nominee to head the Department of Labor, become the Secretary of Labor, Julie Su, who was previously the head of the California Department of Labor. Her nomination is seemingly stalled in Congress. This is not surprising. The Republicans have mounted a great effort to keep her out of the position because they and businesses do not want to see the United States turn into the Republic of California from a wage and hour and Department of Labor perspective. Yeah. Continuing down that road, the Department of Labor has aggressively sought to hire managers, even as the need for wage investigators escalates. Interestingly, 20 investigators have left the wage and hour division just since February. That means there's 774 Department of Labor investigators that cover not more than 9.8 million workplaces across the U.S. So the Department of Labor, the Department of Labor is struggling these days. One other thing I'll mention, since we've covered NLRB, DOL, the day wouldn't be complete without me covering the EEOC. The EEOC announced in the last couple of days that they are really going to be targeting the construction industry for anti-bias enforcement, particularly as it relates to gender and race. So those of you who listen to the program in the construction industry, brace for some scrutiny by the EEOC. And then Bill, just indulge me for a minute as I come full circle here as we go back to the NLRB. A very important development took place a little over a week ago, and that is that the National Labor Relations Board, the division Region 14, right here in Missouri, concluded that the workers at a Missouri cannabis dispensary can move forward with a unionization petition, and they rejected the company's argument that the bargaining unit had to include workers at its 2 other stores because it is a healthcare employer. So really interesting here. You have the state of Missouri that actually regulates the marijuana dispensary through the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. You have the NLRB, though, coming in on the other side saying, well, you're not a healthcare business, and therefore just one of your stores can organize. Not all three of them have to organize together. There's a rule under the NLRB, National Labor Relations Act, of the board, the regulations that say if you are in the healthcare industry that the facilities themselves can be aggregated for organizational purposes. And we as employers, when we're facing union organization petitions, we generally like the petition to be as broad as possible, because generally the more people who vote, the better chance you have of avoiding unionization. So interesting decision there in the marijuana industry. I know you and I've talked a lot about that on our program here and with our friend Officer Tyler Jenkins, as we've done training of how to spot the indicators or indicia of impairment in the workplace.
Yeah, I would assume the marijuana industry would be a huge target for the labor unions. It seems like it's a little bit on the front side, like retail, Starbucks and some of the other retail environment chains. You got high turnover, people coming in who think they want to be paid. High turnover was no pun intended.
Yes, I was just going to.
I saw your face there, Bert. But you have a turnover rate that's pretty high. It's high. That's all. And then after that, it just seems like it's the growing industry that they might want to get into from the ground up.
Still, you're talking about it. High turnover, a growing industry. You're hitting it all. Well,
I couldn't write it that well if I tried. All right, let's move off of that topic. That's not even Philbert's forum. Anything else for us there, lawyer?
No, that's it. That's what we got today.
All right. I just want to point out one thing before we go into lawyer on the clock, Nick. If you can make sure that we get Cathy on the camera and Bert on the camera at the same time. And I just want to point out their backgrounds. All right. Bert's got this fabulous background with all of his certificates up on the wall and his accomplishments in his legal industry. And I've always thought, if you look really closely at them, most of them are about the same size, maybe just in a different frame. Like he just copied a bunch of them and put them on the wall and hung them nicely on the wall. And Cathy, being a PhD, you can see in her background there, she's got all these clever books that she's read. We really do bring a lot of smart people onto the program. I'm not sure what it says about my background here, right? It's just a little bit of decorative artwork, but nevertheless, that just goes to show you the quality of people that we bring onto the program. With that, let's introduce Philbert's Forum.
You've just entered Philbert's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
All right, so today, we are going to talk about stress in the workplace, and Cathy is going to help us with that and understanding it. So we just want to kind of kick off with a little bit of light humor along that path. And if we look at some of the most recent mistakes that are made that can cause stress, but we can get a little bit of laugh out of them. HBO Max, which I think just goes by Max today. I don't know. I'm hearing about that all over the place. They've dropped the HBO. Makes no sense to me, but I'm not a marketing individual. Anyway, so HBO Max had sent out, here is a mistake. We mistakenly sent out an empty test email to a portion of our HBO Max mailing list this evening. We apologize for the inconvenience. And as the jokes pile in, yes, it was the intern. No, really. And we're helping them out through it. So apparently the intern made a big mistake there and sent out the wrong email to some of the HBO audience. Quite funny. My
hunch, Phil, is that was not the biggest mistake we're going to see here.
I don't think it is. I think you stay tight just for one minute. But I know these mistakes get made in the workplace. I can think of several of them myself. Here's another one. It says, "Dear intern, when I was 25, I made a PDF assigning each employee to the Muppet they reminded me of the most. I meant to send it to my work friend, but I accidentally sent it to the entire company. My supervisor, Baker, wanted to fire me, but the owners, Bert and Ernie, intervened."
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you would have to be Bert. I guess that makes me Ernie.
Yep.
We'll have to leave it at that. I don't really have the relationship well enough with Cathy to assign her a name. So we're just not going
I
to
like Beaker. Beaker's
Okay.
one of my favorites. So.
All right. You're going to be Beaker then. All
Dr.
right.
Beaker.
Here we go. Another one. Dear intern, I was using my desktop calendar to make a monthly note of when I started my menstrual period. But after several months, I realized I was making the note on my calendar and I shared it with the colleagues company-wide. I was 37 years old. That would be a little bit embarrassing, I am sure. And I'm sure people weren't even sure how to address that when they discovered it, but had a good laugh. Another really good one here. Dear intern, as a young lawyer, hold on, Bert. As a young lawyer, I proofread a legal brief and I filed it with the court. I caught a typo and blindly used the global find and replace function. Pro tip, don't do that. My brief argued that the rights for the panties, not the parties, all 50 pages of it. All right. So Bert, do not use the find and replace feature on your legal brief. All right. Make sure you give it a good proofreading. A couple good embarrassing moments. I'm sure we all have those. They definitely create stress in the workplace. Be careful in that reply to all. Be careful.
Phil, I noticed we left out, and it's not just intern stress, and we'll just drop this little bomb here. We left out Anheuser-Busch, we left out Target, and we left out the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's caught. I bet there's some people stressed in the workplace these days.
I think there is stress, loss of jobs, all kinds of things happening. Be careful when you pick sides, right?
Yes.
And I think that gets right into our topic with Cathy today. And Cathy, welcome to the program. We're happy to have you. You're doing some great, really meaningful work around the community and with AAIM. Can you just give us a real quick introduction of yourself and some of the things that you're involved in with AAIM and around the community?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's great to be on. And I love the humor. I teach, I do a whole separate workshop on using humor to cope with stress. It's one of my favorite ones. So I'm glad to see you all using humor. And in terms of what your wall says about you, it says you believe that you are a leader in St. Louis. See how I tied all three of those together?
I like it. I like that.
That you're a leader and the art's there, right?
And I don't know if I believe I'm a leader in St. Louis. I think it's more about I just want to believe in something positive. But yes, I would like to be a better leader every single day. But yes, it does probably tell you a lot.
So just a brief background of me. So I'm a professor at SIUE, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I've been there for several years now. And I teach a variety of classes all the way from freshman up through master's level classes. I'm the program director of our industrial organizational psychology master's program, which is basically psychology in the workplace. So a lot of HR organizational behavior topics. And there goes my dog that I was worried about. I'm going to have to feed him treats.
There's the puppy. All right. Is it a little puppy or a big puppy?
So as well, in terms of, my second job, as it were, I do quite a few trainings, both within the context of SIUE, so some of the executive education, as well as Office of Educational Outreach, where I've developed a variety of trainings on stress management. I teach a whole class on that. Emotional intelligence is my research and honestly consulting.
You will not find any of that on the program here, Cathy.
Well, they go hand in hand, right? Emotional intelligence and stress. And then I like to focus on the positive side of wellness. So, and that's a movement within psychology as well, as to instead of focusing on how to prevent the negative, how do we focus on enhancing the positive? So hopefully at the end of the discussion today, we'll talk about a few tips for how employers can help employees with all aspects of wellness in the workplace, and different things that they can do. So that's the brief 20-second version about me.
So Cathy, you said something interesting. I just want to dive into there a little bit. You said emotional, hand in hand, emotional intelligence and stress. You said they kind of go hand in hand. I'm not familiar with that. Can you tell us how or why that is the case?
Sure, that's a great question. Well, if you think about, nobody goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat. Nobody goes from calm, peaceful, serene, or happy to extremely irate or extremely stressed. Choose your word there, whether we're talking stress or emotions. And emotion management and emotion in the workplace is absolutely core and part and parcel of the stress response. So noticing when you're getting amped up is one of the first keys. Is what I teach in emotional intelligence, is noticing when you're getting amped up and intervening early on before you get too amped up is what we call, emotional intelligence, at least part of it. One of the things that we see in the workplaces today, and I've done a lot of work, I think we were talking earlier, with police and nurses, and they're two of the highest stressed jobs. In fact, police officers is the #1 ranked stressed job. And it's largely due to the emotional labor that they have in their job. So what is that? That is having to manage your emotions and other people's emotions in the context or in the service of your job. And so what we've learned over the decades is that is incredibly draining for folks, right? And so the better skills that they have to be able to manage these aspects of their job, the better they're able to move through it, perform, and also be less stressed because they're managing these aspects of their job. Does that get at an answer to?
Oh yeah, no, I think that's I completely get it now, and I would agree. I think that kind of does go hand in glove there from that standpoint. Might suggest why I feel a whole lot more stressed than I should. Okay. Hey, I just want to point out in our chat feature here, we get a lot of comments throughout the program, and we have one here from Ashley. And she was actually a student in 2010 at SIU, and she's saying, hey, it's nice to see you there, Dr. Daus. So just say hi there to Ashley. Yeah, that's
Thanks
great
for
that you have some fans. Perfect. All right. So as we think about this, you do a lot of research, you're talking with students, you're listening, and you're involved in the business world. What do you see as the current state of stress in the workplace? How would you characterize that? Stats, trends, predictions? I'll just leave it wide open to you.
Right. Well, one of the stressors of my job is when technology doesn't work. And this morning I was trying to send Nick, the producer, some stats, and I could not, for the life of me, don't even get me started on forcing to be working in the cloud and trying to download stuff. So it should have been simple. At any rate, the statistics, whether we have, specific ones that we project, rest assured that the statistics support what everybody suspects or what everybody is probably feeling. And that is that stress is really at an all-time high. And as we talk about mental health, just exiting May and mental health month, right? What we're seeing is not just an increase or an uptick, because workers, especially in the US, have been stressed for many decades. We have seen the trend increase for certain over time. But I think what we're seeing is this odd combination of, it's almost like it's a combination of people are absolutely just weary, W-E-A-R-Y, weary and worn out and stressed at the same time. It's a weird combination. And I firmly believe that it's a lot largely due to not understanding the pandemic. And I think that people mistakenly believe that now that we're quote unquote out of the woods with the pandemic, life is back to normal and everybody, but we had a 2-year, crisis, a worldwide crisis and catastrophe, honestly. And we see statistics about kids, right? I'm sure everybody listening or watching the program, the statistics about kids in grade school and how far back they're going to be, and the, not being prepared, and we get them in college and, they don't have some of the basic skills, and we see all these, but what we don't think about are sort of the everyday worker who, okay, now it's sort of life as normal, but normal is different now. People are now, their work life has changed dramatically. Most people, have shifted the way they do work, whether it's fully remote, part remote, and for better and for worse, right? We have Zoom and Teams, and we can do great things that way, but it's totally shifted. And some of the things that have happened have definitely been for the worse. So if I can mention, one of the biggest buffers, most consistent buffers for stress is social support. And it's both within the workplace and outside the workplace. And as we know, when you work remotely, excuse me, it's hard to have that realistic, that real life connection and have the social support. You can call someone, you can chat with someone, but not being able to just turn and walk in somebody's office and sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and have that person who is in your same environment understand what you're going through and allow you to sort of blow off steam and vent. Those are realistic things. They're real things, I guess. I mean that we don't really think about a whole lot. I'll stop for a moment now and let you ask more questions.
Yeah, no, I think I what I'm interpreting and some of the things that I'm reading, and I would add, our mobile devices, the social media. I don't know if you or anyone has watched the Social Dilemma on Netflix. And if not, I'd recommend everyone to watch that. It's a great documentary about the impact of social media and the purposeful design by our large social tech companies and what they're actually doing to our minds that I think create even additional stresses that they have maybe advanced faster than our human abilities have advanced to manage those. No doubt create all kinds of problems for us. And we have a comment from Julie here, who works at one of our hospitals. And, it's one of her roles is to try and take on the employees' stress and help them work through it. And that's where we're going to transition into, some of the helpful hints of wellness on this next. But, by doing this, it becomes overwhelming. Right now, I'm taking on your stress and I'm trying to help you through that. And I have to stop what I was working on and then have to re-engage. And no doubt, Julie, I understand that because I find that as the same as a CEO or any leader. We stop, we pause, we engage, we re-engage in something else. And that in and of itself doesn't let us get things completed and creates this feeling of just being overwhelmed and stressed. So hang in there, Julie. I can definitely relate to that. But Cathy, let's talk through some of the things from a wellness perspective. I know this is a focus of yours, and I'm just going to leave it right there and let you take us right where you want to take us.
Sure. So if there's a way to get the graphic of the wellness, the different pillars. I just grabbed one this morning. People can argue or not argue, but debate about what the pillars of wellness. They're 4, they're 6, they're 8. And if you can't see it, I'll just touch on some of the main ones. So we've got emotional wellness, we've got social wellness, we've got financial wellness, we've got spiritual wellness, we've got workplace wellness, and there are others, physical wellness. And one of the points that I want to make and make clear is just, I'm sure it will resonate with everybody, is, we used to live in a world, I think, where it was expected that you leave your personal life at home and, whether it's politics or religion or your family challenges, whatever, work is work and everything else is everything else. And people just flat out aren't wired that way. We're not wired that way to compartmentalize, and it's not healthy when we try to do that. So what we're seeing in the wellness movement, for better, is that organizations and people in organizations are understanding that people bring these selves into the workplace. And if they don't have aspects where those aspects are nurtured, if they don't have things in the workplace, or if those aren't supported, huge pieces of themselves sometimes are left unattended, right? So what can organizations do? Well, an easy thing to do is to publicize the things that you offer or have available that you're already doing as a company, whether it's an employee assistance program that offers counseling, and usually they're highly qualified counselors off-site, and it's totally confidential and anonymous. And often those types of employee assistance programs can offer things like financial counseling, help with, elder care. And organizations that create a culture or an environment, which honestly is from the top down. This is from the leadership down in terms of modeling practices that support wellness, whether it's taking time off to be with family, taking an extra day past Memorial Day, whether it's deciding that, in the middle of the week, you want to go to a worship service and shifting your schedule around. There are easy things that organizations can do and just brainstorming to support these different aspects. I'm a time watcher, so
I'm watching the time here. What I would say is I'm always impressed with what our employers are doing and the awareness that they have in this space. It's okay to talk about in the workplace today. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. I agree with you. As you leave that at home, you come to work, and these are two separate entities. And it's impressive what organizations are doing, what you're doing with the police department, what we do with our healthcare workers, and right on down to, those organizations we work with in the construction industry, where you would normally think, it's a very masculine industry, even though we heard Bert talk about how the EEOC is watching that industry. There's these stereotypes that I think we're breaking through and providing a lot of good health. Nick, can you pull up the slides real quick? We got just our last minute here. I want to get to the poll results and get some opinions from Cathy on that. So it looks like once a month, once a week. This actually didn't turn out too bad. I was expecting it to be more of every day or multiple times throughout the day. Maybe I stand with a very few in that I feel that way all the time, almost every day. Bert, how about you? Are you trying to add to it? You're on mute there, buddy. Yeah.
I'm much more to the right side of this poll.
Yeah. And you want to be clear, you're on the right side of this poll. You're not trying to take the right side of the politics. Okay.
Correct.
Correct. As we're keeping you towards the middle, my friend. All right. And the next one there, Nick. All right, so here we have some great responses. Cathy, anything on this list? These are our one word
micromanagement. Look at that, because the bigger the word, the more free. That's how it works. The more frequent it popped up. Micromanagement. So I didn't mention the second huge buffer. It's consistent. It's been consistent for decades. Is having a sense of control. When you're micromanaged, it's like leave me alone. I got this. So that totally, Cathy is cutting out.
That's okay. You just keep ignoring that, Cathy. We're almost there.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not surprised by micromanagement at all. And the complainers, look at that. People don't like to hear other people griping, especially if you have to deal with their complaints, for sure. That's
for sure. One thing on micromanaging, being the leader and believing as I do, what I would tell you is that I do have a theory. I can't prove it. The people I know who complain about micromanaging are usually often come out to be the people who do not necessarily manage themselves very well. And they need micromanaging, and they complain about that. And I know that creates a cycle of stress, and that's just one single opinion with a very limited view. But I do experience that myself when I hear people complaining about micromanaging. I'm like, I kind of think you need a little bit more management, to be honest. So anyway, that is a great overview, Cathy. I appreciate what you do for our community, helping the students, having them say hello and shout out to you on the program is awesome. It tells you how your work is impacting the community in ways maybe you don't recognize, but thank you. Thank you for being a part of our AIM community. And we will be back online next week at 7:30. We'll see you then. Thank you for joining. Go out and be good to people.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.